Chapter 51. Bathsheba talks with her outrider. The arrangement for getting back again to Weatherbury had been that Oak should take the place of Poorgrass in Bathsheba's conveyance and drive her home, it being discovered late in the afternoon that Joseph was suffering from his old complaint, a multiplying eye, and was, therefore, hardly trustworthy as a coachman and protector to a woman. But Oak had found himself so occupied, and was full of so many cares relative to those portions of Boldwood's flocks that were not disposed of, that Bathsheba, without telling Oak or anybody, resolved to drive home herself, as she had many times done from Casterbridge market, and trust to her good angel for performing the journey unmolested. But having fallen in with Farmer Boldwood accidentally, on her part at least, at the refreshment tent, she found it impossible to refuse his offer to ride on horseback beside her as escort. It had grown twilight before she was aware, but Boldwood assured her that there was no cause for uneasiness, as the moon would be up in half an hour. Immediately after the incident in the tent she had risen to go, now absolutely alarmed and really grateful for her old lover's protection, though regretting Gabriel's absence, whose company she would have much preferred, as being more proper as well as more pleasant, since he was her own managing man and servant. This, however, could not be helped. She would not, on any consideration, treat Boldwood harshly, having once already ill-used him, and the moon having risen, and the gig being ready, she drove across the hilltop in the wending ways which led downwards, to oblivious obscurity as it seemed, for the moon and the hill it flooded with light were in appearance on a level, the rest of the world lying as a vast shady concave between them. Boldwood mounted his horse, and followed in close attendance behind. Thus they descended into the lowlands, and the sounds of those left on the hill came like voices from the sky, and the lights were as those of a camp in heaven. They soon passed the merry stragglers in the immediate vicinity of the hill, traversed Kingsbere, and got upon the high road. The keen instincts of Bathsheba had perceived that the farmer's staunch devotion to herself was still undiminished, and she sympathized deeply. The sight had quite depressed her this evening, had reminded her of her folly. She wished anew, as she had wished many months ago, for some means of making reparation for her fault. Hence her pity for the man who so persistently loved on to his own injury and permanent gloom had betrayed Bathsheba into an injudicious considerateness of manner, which appeared almost like tenderness, and gave new vigour to the exquisite dream of Jacob's 7 years' service in poor Boldwood's mind. He found an excuse for advancing from his position in the rear, and rode close by her side. They had gone 2 or 3 miles in the moonlight, speaking desultorily across the wheel of her gig concerning the fair, farming, Oak's usefulness to them both, and other indifferent subjects, when Boldwood said suddenly and simply, "Mrs. Troy, you will marry again some day?" This point-blank query unmistakably confused her, and it was not till a minute or more had elapsed that she said, "I have not seriously thought of any such subject." "I quite understand that. Yet your late husband has been dead nearly 1 year, and—" "You forget that his death was never absolutely proved, and may not have taken place, so that I may not be really a widow," she said, catching at the straw of escape that the fact afforded. "Not absolutely proved, perhaps, but it was proved circumstantially. A man saw him drowning too. No reasonable person has any doubt of his death, nor have you, ma'am, I should imagine." "I have none now, or I should have acted differently," she said gently. "I certainly at first had a strange unaccountable feeling that he could not have perished, but I have been able to explain that in several ways since. But though I am fully persuaded that I shall see him no more, I am far from thinking of marriage with another. I should be very contemptible to indulge in such a thought." They were silent now a while, and having struck into an unfrequented track across a common, the creaks of Boldwood's saddle and her gig springs were all the sounds to be heard. Boldwood ended the pause. "Do you remember when I carried you fainting in my arms into the King's Arms in Casterbridge? Every dog has his day. That was mine." I know it all," she said hurriedly. "I, for one, shall never cease regretting that events so fell out as to deny you to me." "I too am very sorry," she said, and then checked herself. "I mean, you know, I am sorry you thought I have always this dreary pleasure in thinking over those past times with you, that I was something to you before he was anything, and that you belonged almost to me. But of course that's nothing. You never liked me." "I did, and respected you too." "Do you now?" "Yes." "Which?" "How do you mean, which?" "Do you like me, or do you respect me?" "I don't know. At least, I cannot tell you. It is difficult for a woman to define her feelings in language which is chiefly made by men to express theirs. My treatment of you was thoughtless, inexcusable, wicked. I shall eternally regret it. If there had been anything I could have done to make amends, I would most gladly have done it. There was nothing on earth I so longed to do as to repair the error, but that was not possible." "Don't blame yourself. You are not so far in the wrong as you suppose. Bathsheba, suppose you had real complete proof that you are what in fact you are, a widow, would you repair the old wrong to me by marrying me?" "I cannot say. I shouldn't yet, at any rate." "But you might at some future time of your life?" "Oh yes, I might at some time." "Well, then, do you know that without further proof of any kind you may marry again in about 6 years from the present, subject to nobody's objection or blame?" "Oh yes," she said, quickly. "I know all that. But don't talk of it. 7 or 6 years! Where may we all be by that time?" "They will soon glide by, and it will seem an astonishingly short time to look back upon when they are past, much less than to look forward to now." "Yes, yes, I have found that in my own experience." "Now listen once more," Boldwood pleaded. "If I wait that time, will you marry me? You own that you owe me amends. Let that be your way of making them." "But, Mr. Boldwood, 6 years!" "Do you want to be the wife of any other man?" "No, indeed. I mean that I don't like to talk about this matter now. Perhaps it is not proper, and I ought not to allow it. Let us drop it. My husband may be living, as I said." "Of course I'll drop the subject if you wish. But propriety has nothing to do with reasons. I am a middle-aged man, willing to protect you for the remainder of our lives. On your side, at least, there is no passion or blamable haste. On mine, perhaps, there is. But I can't help seeing that if you choose from a feeling of pity, and, as you say, a wish to make amends, to make a bargain with me for a far ahead time, an agreement which will set all things right and make me happy, late though it may be, there is no fault to be found with you as a woman. Hadn't I the first place beside you? Haven't you been almost mine once already? Surely you can say to me as much as this: you will have me back again should circumstances permit. Now pray speak. Oh, Bathsheba, promise. It is only a little promise, that if you marry again you will marry me." His tone was so excited that she almost feared him at this moment, even whilst she sympathized. It was a simple physical fear, the weak of the strong. There was no emotional aversion or inner repugnance. She said with some distress in her voice, for she remembered vividly his outburst on the Yalbury road, and shrank from a repetition of his anger. "I will never marry another man whilst you wish me to be your wife, whatever comes. But to say more, you have taken me so by surprise." "But let it stand in these simple words, that in 6 years' time you will be my wife. Unexpected accidents we'll not mention, because those, of course, must be given way to. Now, this time I know you will keep your word." "That's why I hesitate to give it." "But do give it. Remember the past, and be kind." She breathed, and then said mournfully, "Oh, what shall I do? I don't love you, and I much fear that I never shall love you as much as a woman ought to love a husband. If you, sir, know that, and I can yet give you happiness by a mere promise to marry you at the end of 6 years, if my husband should not come back, it is a great honour to me. And if you value such an act of friendship from a woman who doesn't esteem herself as she did, and has little love left, why, I will—" "Promise." "Consider, if I cannot promise soon." "But soon is perhaps never." "Oh no, it is not. I mean soon. Christmas, we'll say." "Christmas." He said nothing further till he added, "Well, I'll say no more to you about it till that time." Bathsheba was in a very peculiar state of mind, which showed how entirely the soul is the slave of the body, the ethereal spirit dependent for its quality upon the tangible flesh and blood. It is hardly too much to say that she felt coerced by a force stronger than her own will, not only into the act of promising upon this singularly remote and vague matter, but into the emotion of fancying that she ought to promise. When the weeks intervening between the night of this conversation and Christmas Day began perceptibly to diminish, her anxiety and perplexity increased. One day she was led by an accident into an oddly confidential dialogue with Gabriel about her difficulty. It afforded her a little relief, of a dull and cheerless kind. They were auditing accounts, and something occurred in the course of their labours which led Oak to say, speaking of Boldwood, "He'll never forget you, ma'am, never." Then out came her trouble before she was aware, and she told him how she had again got into the toils, what Boldwood had asked her, and how he was expecting her assent. "The most mournful reason of all for my agreeing to it," she said sadly, "and the true reason why I think to do so for good or for evil, is this. It is a thing I have not breathed to a living soul as yet. I believe that if I don't give my word, he'll go out of his mind." "Really, do you?" said Gabriel gravely. "I believe this," she continued with reckless frankness, "and heaven knows I say it in a spirit the very reverse of vain, for I am grieved and troubled to my soul about it. I believe I hold that man's future in my hand. His career depends entirely upon my treatment of him. Oh, Gabriel, I tremble at my responsibility, for it is terrible." "Well, I think this much, ma'am, as I told you years ago," said Oak, "that his life is a total blank whenever he isn't hoping free. But I can't suppose. I hope that nothing so dreadful hangs on to it as you fancy. His natural manner has always been dark and strange, you know. But since the case is so sad and odd-like, why don't you give the conditional promise? I think I would." "But is it right? Some rash acts of my past life have taught me that a watched woman must have very much circumspection to retain only a very little credit, and I do want and long to be discreet in this. And 6 years! Why, we may all be in our graves by that time, even if Mr. Troy does not come back again, which he may not impossibly do. Such thoughts give a sort of absurdity to the scheme. Now, isn't it preposterous, Gabriel? However he came to dream of it, I cannot think. But is it wrong? You know, you are older than I." "8 years older, ma'am." "Yes, 8 years. And is it wrong?" "Perhaps it would be an uncommon agreement for a man and woman to make. I don't see anything really wrong about it," said Oak slowly. "In fact, the very thing that makes it doubtful if you ought to marry him under any condition, that is, your not caring about him, for I may suppose—" "Yes, you may suppose that love is wanting," she said shortly. "Love is an utterly bygone, sorry, worn-out, miserable thing with me, for him or any one else." "Well, your want of love seems to me the one thing that takes away harm from such an agreement with him. If wild heat had to do with it, making you long to overcome the awkwardness about your husband's vanishing, it mid be wrong. But a cold-hearted agreement to oblige a man seems different somehow. The real sin, ma'am, in my mind, lies in thinking of ever wedding with a man you don't love, honest and true." "That I'm willing to pay the penalty of," said Bathsheba firmly. "You know, Gabriel, this is what I cannot get off my conscience, that I once seriously injured him in sheer idleness. If I had never played a trick upon him, he would never have wanted to marry me. Oh, if I could only pay some heavy damages in money to him for the harm I did, and so get the sin off my soul that way! Well, there's the debt, which can only be discharged in one way, and I believe I am bound to do it if it honestly lies in my power, without any consideration of my own future at all. When a rake gambles away his expectations, the fact that it is an inconvenient debt doesn't make him the less liable. I have been a rake, and the single point I ask you is, considering that my own scruples, and the fact that in the eye of the law my husband is only missing, will keep any man from marrying me until 7 years have passed, am I free to entertain such an idea, even though 'tis a sort of penance, for it will be that? I hate the act of marriage under such circumstances, and the class of women I should seem to belong to by doing it. It seems to me that all depends on whether you think, as everyone else do, that your husband is dead." "Yes, I've long ceased to doubt that. I well know what would have brought him back long before this time if he had lived." "Well, then, in a religious sense you will be as free to think of marrying again as any real widow of 1 year's standing. But why don't you ask Mr. Thirdly's advice on how to treat Mr. Boldwood?" "No. When I want a broad-minded opinion for general enlightenment, distinct from special advice, I never go to a man who deals in the subject professionally. So I like the parson's opinion on the law, the lawyer's on doctoring, the doctor's on business, and my business man's, that is, yours, on morals." "And on love?" "My own." "I'm afraid there's a hitch in that argument," said Oak, with a grave smile. She did not reply at once, and then, saying, "Good evening, Mr. Oak," went away. She had spoken frankly, and neither asked nor expected any reply from Gabriel more satisfactory than that she had obtained. Yet in the centremost parts of her complicated heart there existed at this minute a little pang of disappointment, for a reason she would not allow herself to recognize. Oak had not once wished her free that he might marry her himself. He had not once said, "I could wait for you as well as he." That was the insect sting. Not that she would have listened to any such hypothesis. Oh no, for wasn't she saying all the time that such thoughts of the future were improper, and wasn't Gabriel far too poor a man to speak sentiment to her? Yet he might have just hinted about that old love of his, and asked, in a playful off-hand way, if he might speak of it. It would have seemed pretty and sweet, if no more, and then she would have shown how kind and inoffensive a woman's "no" can sometimes be. But to give such cool advice, the very advice she had asked for, it ruffled our heroine all the afternoon. Chapter 52. Converging Courses. 1. Christmas Eve came, and the party that Boldwood was to give in the evening was the great subject of talk in Weatherbury. It was not that the rarity of Christmas parties in their parish made this one a wonder, but that Boldwood should be the giver. The announcement had had an abnormal and incongruous sound, as if one should hear of croquet playing in a cathedral aisle, or that some much respected judge was going upon the stage. That the party was intended to be a truly jovial one there was no room for doubt. A large bough of mistletoe had been brought from the woods that day, and suspended in the hall of the bachelor's home. Holly and ivy had followed in armfuls. From 6 that morning till past noon the huge wood fire in the kitchen roared and sparkled at its highest, the kettle, the saucepan, and the three-legged pot appearing in the midst of the flames like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Moreover, roasting and basting operations were continually carried on in front of the genial blaze. As it grew later, the fire was made up in the large long hall, into which the staircase descended, and all encumbrances were cleared out for dancing. The log which was to form the backbrand of the evening fire was the uncleft trunk of a tree, so unwieldy that it could be neither brought nor rolled into its place, and accordingly 2 men were to be observed dragging and heaving it in by chains and levers as the hour of assembly grew near. In spite of all this, the spirit of revelry was wanting in the atmosphere of the house. Such a thing had never been attempted before by its owner, and it was now done as by a wrench. Intended gaieties would insist upon appearing like solemn grandeurs. The organization of the whole effort was carried out coldly, by hirelings, and a shadow seemed to move about the rooms, saying that the proceedings were unnatural to the place and the lone man who lived therein, and hence not good. 2. Bathsheba was at this time in her room, dressing for the event. She had called for candles, and Liddy entered and placed one on each side of her mistress's glass. "Don't go away, Liddy," said Bathsheba, almost timidly. "I am foolishly agitated. I cannot tell why. I wish I had not been obliged to go to this dance, but there's no escaping now. I have not spoken to Mr. Boldwood since the autumn, when I promised to see him at Christmas on business, but I had no idea there was to be anything of this kind." "But I would go now," said Liddy, who was going with her, for Boldwood had been indiscriminate in his invitations. "Yes, I shall make my appearance, of course," said Bathsheba. But I am the cause of the party, and that upsets me. Don't tell Liddy." "Oh no, ma'am. You the cause of it, ma'am?" "Yes, I am the reason for the party. I. If it had not been for me, there would never have been one. I cannot explain any more. There's no more to be explained. I wish I had never seen Weatherbury." "That's wicked of you, to wish to be worse off than you are." "No, Liddy, I have never been free from trouble since I have lived here, and this party is likely to bring me more. Now, fetch my black silk dress, and see how it sits upon me." "But you will leave off that, surely, ma'am? You have been a widow lady 14 months, and ought to brighten up a little on such a night as this." "Is it necessary? No, I will appear as usual, for if I were to wear any light dress, people would say things about me, and I should seem to be rejoicing when I am solemn all the time. The party doesn't suit me a bit, but never mind. Stay and help to finish me off." 3. Boldwood was dressing also at this hour. A tailor from Casterbridge was with him, assisting him in the operation of trying on a new coat that had just been brought home. Never had Boldwood been so fastidious, unreasonable about the fit, and generally difficult to please. The tailor walked round and round him, tugging at the waist, pulling the sleeve, pressing out the collar, and for the first time in his experience Boldwood was not bored. Times had been when the farmer had exclaimed against all such niceties as childish, but now no philosophic or hasty rebuke whatever was provoked by this man for attaching as much importance to a crease in the coat as to an earthquake in South America. Boldwood at last expressed himself nearly satisfied, and paid the bill, the tailor passing out of the door just as Oak came in to report progress for the day. "Oh, Oak," said Boldwood, "I shall of course see you here to-night. Make yourself merry. I am determined that neither expense nor trouble shall be spared." "I'll try to be here, sir, though perhaps it may not be very early," said Gabriel quietly. "I am glad to see such a change in 'ee from what I used to be. Yes, I must own it, I am bright to-night, and cheerful, and more than cheerful, so much so that I am almost sad again with the sense that all of this is passing away. And sometimes, when I am excessively hopeful and blithe, a trouble is looming in the distance, so that I often get to look upon gloom in me with content, and to fear a happy mood. Still, this may be absurd. I feel that it is absurd. Perhaps my day is dawning at last. I hope it will be a long and a fair one. Thank you, thank you. Yet perhaps my cheerfulness rests on a slender hope, and yet I trust my hope. It is faith, not hope. I think this time I reckon with my host. Oak, my hands are a little shaky or something. I can't tie this neckerchief properly. Perhaps you will tie it for me. The fact is, I have not been well lately, you know." "I'm sorry to hear that, sir." "Oh, it's nothing. I want it done as well as you can, please. Is there any late knot in fashion, Oak?" "I don't know, sir," said Oak. His tone had sunk to sadness. Boldwood approached Gabriel, and as Oak tied the neckerchief the farmer went on feverishly. "Does a woman keep her promises, Gabriel?" "If it is not inconvenient to her, she may." "Or rather an implied promise." "I won't answer for her implying," said Oak, with faint bitterness. "That's a word as full of holes as a sieve with them." "Oak, don't talk like that. You have got quite cynical lately. How is it? We seem to have shifted our positions. I have become the young and hopeful man, and you the old and unbelieving one. However, does a woman keep a promise, not to marry, but to enter on an engagement to marry at some time? Now you know women better than I. Tell me." "I am afeard you honour my understanding too much. However, she may keep such a promise, if it is made with an honest meaning to repair a wrong." "It has not gone far yet, but I think it soon will. Yes, I know it will," he said, in an impulsive whisper. "I have pressed upon her the subject, and she inclines to be kind to me, and to think of me as a husband at a long future time, and that's enough for me. How can I expect more? She has a notion that a woman should not marry within 7 years of her husband's disappearance, that her own self shouldn't, I mean, because his body was not found. It may be merely this legal reason which influences her, or it may be a religious one, but she is reluctant to talk on the point. Yet she has promised, implied, that she will ratify an engagement to-night." "7 years," murmured Oak. "No, no, it's no such thing," he said with impatience. 5 years, 9 months, and a few days. 15 months nearly have passed since he vanished. And is there anything so wonderful in an engagement of little more than 5 years? It seems long in a forward view. Don't build too much upon such promises, sir. Remember, you have once been deceived. Her meaning may be good, but there, she's young yet." "Deceived? Never!" said Boldwood vehemently. "She never promised me at that first time, and hence she did not break her promise. If she promises me, she'll marry me. Bathsheba is a woman to her word." 4. Troy was sitting in a corner of the White Hart Tavern at Casterbridge, smoking and drinking a steaming mixture from a glass. A knock was given at the door, and Pennyways entered. "Well, have you seen him?" Troy inquired, pointing to a chair. "Boldwood?" "No, Lawyer Long." "He wasn't at home. I went there first too." "That's a nuisance." "'Tis rather, I suppose. Yet I don't see that because a man appears to be drowned, and was not, he should be liable for anything. I shan't ask any lawyer, not I." "But that's not it exactly. If a man changes his name and so forth, and takes steps to deceive the world and his own wife, he's a cheat, and that in the eye of the law is always a rogue, and that is always a lammocken vagabond, and that's a punishable situation." "Well done, Pennyways." Troy had laughed, but it was with some anxiety that he said, "Now, what I want to know is this. Do you think there's really anything going on between her and Boldwood? Upon my soul, I should never have believed it. How she must detest me! Have you found out whether she has encouraged him?" "I haven't been able to learn. There's a deal of feeling on his side seemingly, but I don't answer for her. I didn't know a word about any such thing till yesterday, and all I heard then was that she was going to the party at his house tonight. This is the first time she's ever gone there, they say. And they say that she've not so much as spoke to him since they were at Greenhill Fair, but what can folk believe of it? However, she's not fond of him, quite offish and quite careless, I know." "I'm not so sure of that. She's a handsome woman, Pennyways, is she not? Own that you never saw a finer or more splendid creature in your life. Upon my honour, when I set eyes upon her that day, I wondered what I could have been made of to be able to leave her by herself so long. And then I was hampered with that bothering show, which I'm free of at last, thank the stars." He smoked on a while, and then added, "How did she look when you passed by yesterday?" "Oh, she took no great heed of me, you may well fancy, but she looked well enough, far as I know. Just flashed her haughty eyes upon my poor scram body, then let them go past me to what was beyond, much as if I'd been no more than a leafless tree. She had just got off her mare to look at the last ring down of cider for the year. She had been riding, and so the colours were up, and her breath rather quick, so that her bosom plimbed and fell, every time plain to my eye. Ay, and there were the fellers round her ringing down the cheese and bustling about and saying, 'Wear it upon me, ma'am, 'twill spoil your gown.' 'Never mind me,' says she. Then Gabe brought her some of the new cider, and she must needs go drinking it through a straw moat, and not in a natural way at all. 'Liddy,' says she, 'bring indoors a few gallons, and I'll make some cider wine.' Sergeant, I was no more to her than a morsel of scruff in the fuel house. I must go and find her out at once. Yes, I see that, I must go. Oak is headman still, isn't he?" "Yes, I believe. And at Little Weatherbury Farm too. He manages everything." "'Twill puzzle him to manage her, or any other man of his compass." "I don't know about that. She can't do without him, and knowing it well, he's pretty independent. And she've a few soft corners to her mind, though I've never been able to get into one. The devil's in it. Ah, Bailey, she's a notch above you, and you must own it. A higher class of animal, a finer tissue. However, stick to me, and neither this haughty goddess, dashing piece of womanhood, Juno, wife of mine— Juno was a goddess, you know— or anybody else shall hurt you. But all this wants looking into, I perceive. What with one thing and another, I see that my work is well cut out for me." 5. "How do I look to-night, Liddy?" said Bathsheba, giving a final adjustment to her dress before leaving the glass. "I never saw you look so well before. Yes, I'll tell you when you look like it. That night, a year and a half ago, when you came in so wild-like, and scolded us for making remarks about you and Mr. Troy." "Everybody will think that I'm setting myself to captivate Mr. Boldwood, I suppose," she murmured. "At least they'll say so. Can't my hair be brushed down a little flatter? I dread going, yet I dread the risk of wounding him by staying away." Anyhow, ma'am, you can't well be dressed any plainer than you are, unless you go in a sackcloth at once. 'Tis your excitement is what makes you look so noticeable tonight." "I don't know what's the matter. I feel wretched at one time and buoyant at another. I wish I could have continued quite alone as I have been for the last year or so, with no hopes and no fears, and no pleasure and no grief." "Now just suppose Mr. Boldwood should ask you, only just suppose it, to run away with him. What would you do, ma'am?" "Liddy, none of that," said Bathsheba, gravely. "Mind, I won't hear joking on any such matter. Do you hear?" "I beg pardon, ma'am, but knowing what rum things we women be, I just said—however, I won't speak of it again." "No marrying for me yet for many a year, if ever. 'Twill be for reasons very, very different from those you think, or others will believe. Now get my cloak, for it's time to go." 6. "Oak," said Boldwood, "before you go I want to mention what has been passing in my mind lately. That little arrangement we made about your share of the farm, I mean. That share is small, too small, considering how little I attend to business now, and how much time and thought you give to it. Well, since the world is brightening for me, I want to show my sense of it by increasing your proportion in the partnership. I'll make a memorandum of the arrangement which struck me as likely to be convenient, for I haven't time to talk about it now, and then we'll discuss it at our leisure. My intention is ultimately to retire from the management altogether, and until you can take all the expenditure upon your shoulders I'll be a sleeping partner in the stock. Then, if I marry her, and I feel I shall, why—" "Pray, don't speak of it, sir," said Oak, hastily. "We don't know what may happen. So many upsets may befall 'ee. There's many a slip, as they say, and I would advise you—I know you'll pardon me this once—not to be too sure." "I know, but the feeling I have about increasing your share is on account of what I know of you. Oak, I have learnt a little about your secret. Your interest in her is more than that of a bailiff for an employer, but you have behaved like a man. And I, as a sort of successful rival, successful partly through your goodness of heart, should like definitely to show my sense of your friendship, under what must have been a great pain to you." "Oh, that's not necessary, thank ye," said Oak, hurriedly. "I must get used to such as that. Other men have, and so shall I." Oak then left him. He was uneasy on Boldwood's account, for he saw and knew that this constant passion of the farmer made him not the man he had once been. As Boldwood continued a while in his room alone, ready and dressed to receive his company, the mood of anxiety about his appearance seemed to pass away, and to be succeeded by a deep solemnity. He looked out of the window, and regarded the dim outline of the trees upon the sky and the twilight deepening to darkness. He went to a locked closet, and took from a locked drawer therein a small circular case the size of a pill-box, and was about to put it in his pocket. But he lingered to open the cover and take a momentary glance inside. It contained a woman's finger ring, set all the way round with small diamonds, and from its appearance had evidently been recently purchased. Boldwood's eyes dwelt upon its many sparkles a long time, though that its material aspect concerned him little was plain from his manner and mien, which were those of a mind following out the presumed thread of that jewel's future history. The noise of wheels at the front of the house became audible. Boldwood closed the box, stowed it away carefully in his pocket, and went out upon the landing. The old man, who was his indoor factotum, came at the same moment to the foot of the stairs. "They be coming, sir. Lots of 'em, afoot and a-driving. I was coming down this moment. Those wheels I heard. Is it Mrs. Troy? No, sir, 'tis not she yet." A reserved and sombre expression had returned to Boldwood's face again, but it poorly cloaked his feelings when he pronounced Bathsheba's name, and his feverish anxiety continued to show its existence by a galloping motion of his fingers upon the side of his thigh as he went down the stairs. 7. "How does this cover me?" said Troy to Pennyways. "Nobody would recognize me now, I'm sure." He was buttoning on a heavy grey overcoat of Noatian cut, with cape and high collar, the latter being erect and rigid like a girdling wall, and nearly reaching the verge of the travelling cap, which was pulled down over his ears. Pennyways snuffed the candle, and then looked up and deliberately inspected Troy. "You've made up your mind to go, then?" he said. "Made up my mind? Yes, of course I have." Why not write to her? 'Tis a very queer corner that you've got into, Sergeant. You see, all these things will come to light if you go back, and they won't sound well at all. Faith, if I was you, I'd even bide as you be, a single man, of the name of Francis. A good wife is good, but the best wife is not so good as no wife at all. Now that's my outspoke mind, and I've been called a long-headed feller here and there." "All nonsense," said Troy angrily. "There she is with plenty of money, and a house and farm and horses and comfort, and here am I, living from hand to mouth, a needy adventurer. Besides, it is no use talking now. It is too late, and I am glad of it. I have been seen and recognized here this very afternoon. I should have gone back to her the day after the fair, if it hadn't been for you talking about the law and rubbish about getting a separation, and I don't put it off any longer. What the deuce put it into my head to run away at all, I can't think. Humbugging sentiment, that's what it was. But what man on earth was to know that his wife would be in such a hurry to get rid of his name? I should have known it. She's bad enough for anything. Pennyways, mind who you are talking to." "Well, Sergeant, all I say is this, that if I were you I'd go abroad again where I came from. 'Tisn't too late to do it now. I wouldn't stir up the business and get a bad name for the sake of living with her, for all that about your play acting is sure to come out, you know, although you think otherwise. My eyes and nims, there'll be a racket if you go back just now, in the middle of Boldwood's Christmasing." "Yes, I expect I shall not be a very welcome guest if he has got her there," said the sergeant with a slight laugh. "A sort of Alonzo the Brave. And when I go in the guests will sit in silence and fear, and all laughter and pleasure will be hushed, and the lights in the chamber burn blue, and the worms—oh, horrible! Ring for some more brandy, Pennyways. I felt an awful shudder just then. Well, what is there besides? A stick. I must have a walking stick." Pennyways now felt himself to be in something of a difficulty, for should Bathsheba and Troy become reconciled, it would be necessary to regain her good opinion if he would secure the patronage of her husband. "I sometimes think she likes you yet, and is a good woman at bottom," he said, as a saving sentence. "But there's no telling to a certainty from a body's outside. Well, you'll do as you like about going, of course, Sergeant, and as for me, I'll do as you tell me." "Now let me see what the time is," said Troy, after emptying his glass in one draught as he stood. "6:30. I shall not hurry along the road, and shall be there then before 9.